Welcome to Smart to Fish Wild, the podcast where a passion for the outdoors meets the strategy of building a meaningful, well-intentioned life. I'm Mark Candler, happy father, Colorado native, outdoorsman, passionate fly fisherman, and senior partner at Silver Oak Wealth Planning. Each week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with some incredible people who are turning their passion into purpose and designing lives that leave room for really what matters the most. Today, I'm joined by Mike Mehlmann, founder and owner of BassForecast. Today, we're going to talk about a lot. The conversation is going to highlight the intersection of data, science, outdoor recreation, and business strategy. What Mike is doing with BassForecast is really meaningful because it reframes fishing success from luck and experience towards informed, data-driven decision-making. Mike is an incredible fisherman and outdoorsman and has an unbelievable track record in the business world, a really unique set of skills. So sit back and enjoy the conversation, and I hope you find value. Mike, so thank you so much for being on this podcast with us. And I just wanted to ask what inspired you to get this business going?
Mark, thanks for having me. Yeah, there's always an inception story, right? I was running a chain of coffee and bagel stores. I wasn't actually the owner of the stores. We ran the network within the stores. So we had the exclusive rights to Einstein Brothers Bagels and some other coffee and bagel store chains in the US, to where we had screens in the waiting room where people were waiting for their order. And we licensed entertainment feeds from ESPN, AccuWeather, local weather. We ran local ads. It was an out-of-home media company, kind of like a Clear Channel or JCDecaux or Lamar, when you're sitting in an airport and you're watching entertainment, same kind of concept. And we were licensing feeds from AccuWeather, and this was 2015, and I was having dinner with my AccuWeather contact, and I made a comment to him that his fishing forecast wasn't very accurate. So he took a little exception to that, and he wasn't much of an angler, though. So he calls me the next day. He says, "Tell me more what you meant." And I said, a bass prefers warm water, and a trout prefers cold water. So how can a singular fishing forecast be accurate? We talked through that a little bit. He calls me a couple of days later, and he says, we have 1.2 billion unique users a day worldwide. Billion. I said, really? A day? He said, yeah, between our mobile app, our website, and our licensing agreements, that's how many viewers we have a day. And Fishing Index is our number 2 looked at index worldwide. I go, wow. So, then Mark, we started what a lot of business owners do is anyone else doing it? No. How important is it to anglers? Well, every angler wonders how the weather's affecting the bite, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Or anyone that doesn't even fish understands whether you hike or camp or anything you're going to do in the outdoors, the weather's going to affect your experience, and it also will affect how you gear up. If you're a skier or a snowboarder and it's going to be icy, you're going to gear up differently than if it's going to be powdery, right? So, there was no good resource for anglers to try to plan a fishing trip based on the weather, because all of the data that's in the industry currently is what happened yesterday. That's the most annoying thing. I don't know if you hear that in fly fishing, but if you Google the 5 worst words a fisherman can hear, it's "you should have been here yesterday."
Yeah, exactly.
Have you heard that term before?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah. In fact, I think we're going to produce an ad with a buddy telling his buddy that, and then the buddy throwing him off the boat.
All I care about is today.
Yeah. And I was running a company. I was so busy. I couldn't really afford to fish every weekend. I just didn't have the time. So I want to cherry pick my days, and I found myself on the wrong side of "you should have been here yesterday" too many times. So that was the motivation to launch BassForecast, to solve an unmet need, a problem that anglers had with getting good data on how's the bite going to be. Are they going to be highly active or inactive? Now, you may want to go on Saturday, but knowing that they're inactive is going to cause you to fish differently, right? You may not, as a fly fisherman, you may not fish those dry flies. You may have to go down and nymph, right?
Right.
So the weather also affects the techniques you would use. And, so that's how we started the company. And that was way back in 2015. And it took us 6 months of research and development to begin production. Production began, and I believe we launched on the App Store in late summer of 2016 and on Google Play in early 2017. So by By the 2017 season, we were up and running.
Wow. And over 1 million users now?
Yes. Well, we
What
had
do
a
you,
million, we've had 1.5 million installs. So the users vary by season wildly. As you know, fishing, some people fish twice a year, some people fish every week. For those that fish twice a year, we're an excellent resource because they often want to cherry pick the best days, or if they're going on a trip to a new lake that's already pre-planned and they can't really cherry pick their day, the information on what's the pattern going to be, are the fish going to be deep, shallow, do they want it fast or slow, is really helpful. Whether you're fishing a publicly mapped waterway with a lot of publicly available information, or a lake, a pond, a private pond, it doesn't matter.
wow.
Excuse me, my dog needs out. Ah.
So you've had installations globally, worldwide?
Yeah, 90, I think it was 97% are US based.
Got it. Much in
In the
Canada.
US, the US is really the hotbed for bass fishing. There are more people that bass fish on a monthly basis than golf. A lot of
Wow.
people don't realize that. Yeah, yeah.
Holy cow. I didn't
30,
realize that.
30 million. There's 30 million. Southern Canada, it's pretty popular. Overseas, the hotbeds are, I say hotbeds, Japan. And it's hard to get a read on how many anglers are in Japan. There's not near as many as the US, but those waters over there, they're fewer bass fishing waters and they're highly, highly pressured. And
Wow.
Japan produces the most innovative, although, a lot of US manufacturers are now doing the same. And I think, intelligent fishing pressure has made all species of fish harder to catch. So you do have to be smarter. So I like the name of your podcast. Um,
Smart
Smart
to
to
fish
Fish Wild.
wild. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
compliment. Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
And the
Very, very cool.
catch and release movement has been extremely positive for the angling community, as a whole, because as you know, these fish get caught multiple times, and if everyone kept them, no one would be catching any big fish. The challenge with that is a fish that's caught 3, 4, 5 times, they start to learn to avoid lures. So you have to really, to catch the really big ones, you have to really be on your game. You have to mimic the prey. You have to be there at the right time in the right place. Presentation, everything needs to be on track.
Yeah, it's have you heard the name Pat Dorsey? D-O
SEY.
Yes.
God, it's vaguely familiar, but I can't say that I know who he is or
He
he or
is,
she.
I think, the best well-known fly fishing celebrity guide in the state of Colorado. He's been a guide for about 35 years. And we have started a fly fishing social club here in Denver, Colorado. And we had our holiday party last night and he came and he presented. And
Well, that must have been entertaining.
yeah, he presented on,
What were some of the highlights of his presentation and a few takeaways?
well, he's done one for us before, and the previous one was very, very technical on technique for, fishing tailwaters, talking about, and it was just, casting techniques, nymphing, strike indicators, what to do in this scenario, what to do in that scenario, how to cast it. Just incredible complexity and depth on the tactical side. This was talking about his favorite fly fishing waters in the state of Colorado. And he spoke about the insects of each river, time of year, his favorite times to fish, some of the migratory spawning patterns. So he spoke about, obviously, the South Platte, where I've fished with him as a client, with him as my guide several times. And the guy is, I think if you, for example, would go with a really, really good guide into Cheeseman Canyon, where the fish basically have swimming PhDs. I think you might catch maybe 8 or 10 fish. And if you go with Pat, you literally catch like 30 to 40. He is that much better than anybody out there.
And I have heard of the South Platte Cheeseman Canyon, so I know it's famous. And those trout there are pretty big, aren't they? 20, 21, 22.
Yeah. It's incredible. Incredible. So I will send you a video when we're done that we did a minute-long video of actually fishing with Pat Dorsey in Cheeseman Canyon. And it draws some of the similarities between
You're going to cause me to book a trip with him. Right?
Yeah, do it.
We should go together.
That'd be fun. He's yeah, that'd be awesome. So here's the funny thing, Mike. You know when he's available to fish during the famous Scud Hatch on the South Platte River in May?
When?
2027.
So, wow. So there's a Scud Hatch that's famous. Okay. I
Yeah,
thought scuds in a tailwater were there year round. I didn't know there was a hatch for scuds.
yeah, I think it's has to do with the levels of the reservoir, and
Ah,
where
there
the
might be a peak time. Yeah.
yeah, when the warm high water hits, which is usually in May, the
So how long does this hatch last?
probably a couple weeks.
It's kind of like the green drake hatch in Utah in July.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I always miss it. Last year, I finally hit it, and it was unbelievable. Yeah. So interesting. The scud hatch in May. Scud hatch. Yeah, I see. I'm making notes here. Scud hatch in May. You know what I would like to ask him and you is something I learned in trout fishing that's actually helped my bass fishing, and this was in Argentina. Have you ever been down there to trout fish?
Uh, I've set foot in Argentina. I did not fish. I lived in Brazil for 2 years.
You do speak Portuguese?
Eu falo.
Where in Brazil?
Sao Paulo and Rio de
Ah,
Janeiro.
I've been to. I spent a week in Rio during the World Cup.
Wow. I
Yeah.
was I actually lived there in '94 when they beat Italy in the US to win the World Cup.
Oh my God.
I was
You
in
probably experienced the biggest worldwide party. I mean, countrywide party in the world, right?
it was yes. I mean they would say like literally Carnival aqui, Copa do Mundo aqui.
Yeah.
It just literally I was in grad school and I was an intern at AT&T in Rio de Janeiro, and the finals were on the semifinals and the finals were on a Brazilian long weekend. And my boss said to me, of course in Portuguese, he said to me, Marcos, like when we win the World Cup, do not return to the office for a week. If you do, I will fire you. And I was like, but sir, we have like a $75 million RFP with Bell South that's due. And he says, in traditional Portuguese, you know what that means. He says,
It
para o mundo.
means by tomorrow, right?
Yeah, vai tomar no cu.
Hey, by tomorrow. I play enough soccer, okay, to
Yeah, that's awesome.
we actually so now what were you doing there again? And I'll tell you my Brazilian story in a second.
I got my master's in international business studies at the University of South Carolina. So
Mhm.
you get admitted into a language track. I was Portuguese. Of course, they have Spanish, Italian, German, French, Chinese, Japanese. And you get your core MBA for the first year. And then you have, actually, you show up. The first semester is intense language. And then the next 2 semesters are core MBA. And then you live abroad for a year and work for an American multinational. Then you come back and your final semester is your
What did you like better, Sao Paulo or Rio?
God. They were both just absolutely fantastic. I would say
Certainly, you must have fished for peacock bass if you were in Brazil.
I did not, because you have to take it. Oh man, that's on my bucket list.
This one was 23.1.
My God, that is a beast.
Yeah,
I'm going to get down there in the next couple of years and do it.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Did you do that through Yellow Dog or?
Well, I'm very familiar with Yellow Dog. I haven't used them. We use an independent guy. They all use the same boats. It's the guides that make the difference and their itinerary. The guy that we use is David. I can get you his contact info. He's an independent guy. So he has a group of guides that have been with him for years and years and years. And a lot of his guides are on the far western part of the Negro. If you know where Barcelos is, they're in and around, they're from that area. And the reason he uses those guides is they're able to negotiate with the Indians because a lot of them are chiefs of their it's the Wild West there. I mean, you get on the Amazon, you go 50 miles down the Amazon and there's an Indian chief, right, that controls that area. I say controls, they can't stop you from going in, but they all want to negotiate. You can't fish here because there's too many fish. That's their line. Too many fish? Of course, then you want to fish there, right? So the negotiation, usually starts with a 6-year-old kid rowing out in a handmade canoe. He's got a blow dart gun, no kidding, a spear, a proud little Indian warrior. You can't fish here, too many fish. Okay, kid, what do you want? Come on the boat with us. The kid wants a Coke, right? Because a nice cold Diet Coke. And then he goes from being a little warrior to being talkative, right? It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. And then what they want is gas because that's the only way they get around down there, right? They have these small outboards that need gas. And So you give them a couple gallons of gas and they let you fish they're really like lagoons that are off the main river where a lot of the giant peacocks will migrate.
Wow.
So that's why our group caught a lot of 20-pounders, because the guides that he uses are, it's more important to have the right guides than the right fishing operation. And I
Huh.
guess they can kind of go hand in hand, but his is smaller, boutique. It's not that it's more expensive. It's about the same price as some of these mass operations, but I'm never going to go with anyone else other than him, because both times I went, I got a 20. And that's the peak, pinnacle of achievement in peacock bass fishing.
Wow. What is prime season? December, January?
Yeah, November through it depends how long the dry season lasts. Their dry season, which is their summer, our winter. I think it's mid-November through early February. So like now.
God.
So
So that
I still play soccer on an old man's team here in Dallas Fort Worth, and I played at Northwestern University, played in Germany for a summer. So we got some pretty good players on our team. We had a guy that joined our team last year from Sao Paulo.
wow.
And he he was referred to me by someone, and we're kind of careful about who we pick up, not because we're trying to win the league or anything, just because we want good guys on our team that enjoy drinking beer afterwards and hanging out, kind of guys you want to go on a fishing trip with.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to him, and he's an engineer, and he's pretty modest, and he says, "Yeah, I played in Sao Paulo. How old are you?" 41. Well, it's a 40 and over league, so he's at the younger end of the spectrum, right? And I go, "Where did you play in Sao Paulo?" He goes, "Well, I played in the Sao Paulo, recreational league in the over 40 division." And I said, "What position?" "Forward." I said, "How many goals did you have?" He said, "I had 30 goals in 18 games."
My God.
I said, "Were you leading scorer in Sao Paulo?" He goes, "Yeah, I was the leading scorer in Sao Paulo."
My
So
God.
I I picked him up sight unseen, and he was phenomenal. I knew, look, I could have played lower level pro. I played with a lot of pros. He was the best forward. His name was Everton. Yeah, he was definitely amazing.
The best of all time.
Brazilians love their soccer. So I was
Oh,
going to say I learned something fishing, and I've only been to Argentina once. It was 7 years ago. Floated the Chimiwin River, which is near the Chilean border, kind of middle Patagonia, not real far south. And the water's crystal clear over there. So the trout, I'm not going to say they're picky. They're not nearly as pressured. I mean, we floated 20 miles that day. I think it saw one other boat. I mean, there's not much traffic on the river, but the water's crystal clear. There were willow trees lining certain sections of the river, and there were glowworms that were feeding on the willow leaves. Certain type of glowworm. They were about almost 2 inches long and thin, and their coloration was a cross between chartreuse and green. Okay, when there would be a gust of wind, you would just see the water boiling under the tree. What was happening was the wind would knock the glowworms into the water, and the big trout were lying underneath waiting on them, right? So the guides would position themselves to where you could make a cast under the tree, and they all tied loop knots, a loop knot.
yeah. Wow.
And I asked them, I said, "Why go through all the trouble of a loop knot?" They said, "If you tie the knot directly, it doesn't matter what line weight you use, it will not flutter down properly. It's the presentation, right?"
Right.
And so now I use loop knots for fishing certain baits for bass, and I'm getting bit more often than guys on the boat with me fishing the same lures in the same areas. Those lures would include like flukes, Senkos, swim baits, because you get more of that natural wiggling action if you have a loop knot. Also, I think, and we had interesting conversations with these guys about this topic, that fly fishermen, if the bite's really, really tough, the prevailing wisdom in the United States is downsize your line, right? You have to go, if you're not getting bit on a 4X, go to 5X, and heaven forbid, you might need to go to a 6 or even a 7X, which is a nightmare when you're talking about a 20-inch trout on a 6X tippet. Good luck with that. So the guide in Argentina said something that stuck with me to this day. He goes, "If the trout are so picky, why don't they see the hook coming out of the fly?" He said it's not the line weight, it's the action of the fly. The lighter you go with the line, the better the action, the subtle movements of that fly in the currents, right?
Right.
He said American guides are lazy. He said they don't want to tie loop knots, but you can use a loop knot with a 3X or 4X tippet. It's going to give you as much or more action than dropping down to a 6X tippet. And the trout's not line shy. They're not line shy. They're shy to the fact that your lure, that your fly is not floating naturally. That was, I mean, how do you argue that? What do you, they can't see the hook? The hook's infinitely bigger than any fly line, right?
Right.
So
Oh, that
may-
is such an astute point.
maybe I've motivated you to try tying loop knots and
Oh, absolutely.
ask your guide friend. I mean, on light line, they're difficult to tie correctly on light line, but even on a even on a 4X, they're challenging. But I'm tying them using. I mean, in Texas, where the bass are big and there's a lot of stumps, trees. If you're not using 15 to 20 pound tests, you're not getting a lot of fish. If you're not using 15 to 20 pound tests and heavy cover, you're going to lose a lot of fish. So loop knots are easy to tie when you get to that line weight.
Wow. I might have to get those 5.00 glasses to put on to tie a
Hey,
loop knot with for it.
the lefty cray loop knot
Okay. That is
is.
awesome advice.
I have never had one break on me. Oh, loop knots aren't as strong. Baloney. The lefty cray loop knot is just as strong as tying directly. As you probably know, everyone thinks their knot's better than the other guys. They're all sure there might be slight differences, but the key to a knot is seating it properly. If you seat the knot properly, most knots are plenty good enough. So never had a fish break my line on a lefty cray loop knot.
Wow. Wow. Do you mind if we jump back into your business?
Sure.
So where do you see your business evolving to in 5 years?
Well, we initially defined ourselves as an app, but really an app is not a product. An app is just a portal to get somewhere fast, right? The product is an engineered piece of software, right? It's the research and development and the engineering that allows people to access bass forecasts in real time, whether that's on a computer or on a phone. It doesn't matter. If the App Store and Google Play went away tomorrow, we would allow people to access via online. So I think the platform of predictive fishing technology, of species specific predictive fishing technology, is the market that we have a big lead in and the market that we have a lot of runway in. We have, yeah, sure, we have 1 million users, but there are 30 million people that bass fish and 28 million of them care about how the weather's affecting the bite, right? We're not we're not selling bass boats here that only a small percentage of the market can afford. We're selling something that everyone can afford and everyone should have because it'll help even the most experienced anglers adapt to certain conditions. Experienced anglers use this more as a fallback. We'll match what they're thinking 80 to 90% of the time, but the 10%, 20% that we don't is where they're like, "Oh wow, I hadn't thought about that." Whereas a beginner will use this as a primary guide. Makes sense. So right now, next year and a half, we are raising capital to blow out the marketing, to just grow our customer base as fast as we can. We're also developing products based on our platform of helping people understand when's the best time to go, which appeals to a large chunk of the market. And no matter when they go, if they say, well, don't tell me when to fish, I got to go this Saturday. Great. How is the weather pattern affecting the water? The water will affect the fish behavior, right? So that we can give them good advice on what the pattern's going to be. In bass fishing, there are 9 bass seasons in a year. Winter pattern, pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, summer, dog days of summer, early fall, fall, and late fall. That's 9 bass seasons. Their position in the water column on structural features is going to be dictated by water temp and photo light periods. Water temp can be predicted, and we spend a lot of time and energy working with water engineers and meteorologists to determine how long does it take for the top 10 feet of the water column to come up to par with weather trends. And it's a long period of time. So our algorithm takes that into account. We call the temperature time lag effect. For those bass fishermen that are watching this, you know what I'm going to say next about this pre-spawn. If you get, in Texas, in the southern U.S., we get these warm fronts in late January, early to mid-February that last a day or two. That's not long enough. But if it's 3 to 4 days of 80 degrees in a row after it's been in the 40s and 50s for a month, that is usually enough to trigger a pre-spawn movement. And the big females always move up first. It's kind of like, Mark, if you're out there in Colorado, when do the big browns first move up on the reds, right? You want to be on
Right.
there. You
Yep.
want to be out there when that happens.
Yep.
We've been extremely accurate in predicting that. And I think we opened the eyes of a lot of pro anglers because at the Bassmaster tournament at the Bassmaster Classic 3 years ago, the Tennessee River, all the anglers were thinking the fish are going to be in a winter pattern all tournament long, and we predicted a pre-spawn movement the day the tournament began, from the practice round to the tournament round. And no one believed us. Well, 4 anglers did. 4 of the top 5 did.
My God.
That's the Super Bowl of bass fishing, right? The winner wins $500,000.
Yeah.
One person.
Yeah.
I think there's well more than $1 million in payoffs. So a lot of pros opened their eyes and said, yeah, I should have listened to BassForecast. Well, what is BassForecast? It's just a compilation of fisheries biologists, water engineers. We just try to keep it simple. So where we're going with the company is we're also now using that to recommend top 5 baits, top 3 to 4 lake locations, top presentations. How do we match those? Mark, that's where, a ton of research went into our recommendations of, if you asked 1,000 of the world's best anglers what top 5 baits would they use in a pre-spawn, here's your top 5 answers. Because if you ask Mark Handler, you might be a jig fisherman and you're always going to recommend a jig. Another guy might like this or that, but we had some it became pretty clear what the top 3 were. The 4th and 5th baits were up to debate, but there's 22 categories of baits. So picking the top 5 is based on 2 things: the bass season and the mood rating. Are they in the mood to feed fast? Are they in the mood to feed slow? The mood rating is simply a rating of their metabolism as it pertains to the thermal optimum. So we're producing some interesting content and helping anglers make better recommendations on what gear they should buy. If I'm going fishing in 7 to 10 days, what lures do I need? You can see the application for brands and retailers, right? And in fact, we're now licensing our bait recommendation engine. We spun it off as a separate software where we're licensing it B2B for retailers and brands to use to help consult their customers in the buying process to accelerate e-commerce. Rapala, the number 1 known lure brand in the world, if you go to their website right now and search lures by species and go to bass lures on Rapala, the first thing you'll see is the Bass Bait Advisor AI. That's our product. We license to Rapala. So a customer can see, hey, in the next set, they can enter any location in the world. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm in Los Angeles, California. And based on your specific location, it'll ingest all the data about the past 20, 30, 10 days weather, the future 10, and calculate best odds on what the bass season is going to be and show you the top 5 baits you need for every day. And they might change, especially during the fall transition and spring to summer, where you'll look on there and like March 3rd, it'll recommend these baits, and March 10th, they're different baits, because on March 10th, the massive cold front came through, right? So that's pretty cool. So an angler can look at that and say, I'm going fishing on these days, and what are the top 5 baits that I have to have? You can see why brands and retailers want this, because it helps make better recommendations rooted in sound science and not a single person's individual opinions, right? The days of being able to walk in a tackle shop and find someone super knowledgeable are diminishing. And even if you do, are they really in touch with what's going to happen tomorrow? Of course not. They're going to tell you what worked yesterday, what worked last week. And what worked last week might not work this week. So licensing our recommendation engines to accelerate e-commerce. We produce interesting content. We have heat maps that are animated heat maps of the bass ratings and the bass seasons throughout the US that we publish every week. And they're really cool to look at. So our email newsletter now is the number 1 read email newsletter in the entire fishing industry. I know that's a bold statement to make, but we buy advertising from all the big players. I'm not going to name them here, but you know who they are. Every single big player you can think of in fishing, we advertise with. So our newsletter now actually has higher readership than any of them. And our website traffic is up to 1.6 million a month. So we also have, because we're publishing interesting, unique content, weather is news that's constantly changing. So we've got a media arm, we've got a B2B licensing arm, and we have the business to consumer mobile app. Those are kind of the 3 legs of the company.
Wow.
The fourth leg of the 4-legged stool, if you will be data. Because we're predicting the bite, we can also help send surge signals to retailers which can be very valuable. Hey, and in the Northeast, in Pennsylvania and New York, 10 days from now, there's going to be a spike in demand for bass fishing, because we can see ahead of time that it's going to be ideal weather for bass fishing. And so if the retailers and brands know that, they can adjust their digital media ad buys, their merchandising, their promotions, This is all capable, Mark, because we're connected to our customers. We're online with them, right? So this is where we're going as a company. We are the future of predictive fishing. We're starting in bass because bass is the largest, if you will, game predator fish in the US, but we're going to expand to other species.
When are you going to work on trout?
Trout is very interesting because in the West in particular, most of it's done in streams, right? Most trout fishing is done in streams, and
Correct.
tailwaters are completely different.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, we'll probably go into crappie, bream, walleye, and pike. Trout is highly, highly localized, and it has less to do with the weather. Freestone streams that are not tailwaters, yeah. I mean, there could be some applications with us. The founder of Trout Routes and I are pretty friendly. You familiar with Trout Routes, the mobile app
I
Trout Routes?
I am. I am.
Yeah, Onyx purchased them about a year ago. Great guy, great company. In fact, if I lived where you lived, I'd have trout routes. Because I love trout fishing. I love exploring and finding new waters. And, that's what Onyx is all about. We're not about that. We're about understanding how the weather's going to affect the bite. And that's where a lot of things that, if I were to educate, you know, consumers and investors alike that say, oh, well, you're an app. Well, Bass Pro Shops has an app. Doesn't mean they're an app company. We're not an app. No company is really an app company. An app is just an outlet, right? An app is just a widget on your phone.
Yeah,
We produce content. We produce content that is dynamic, and we have an algorithm that automatically adjusts the output of the content based on the inputs. Where do we publish that
unbelievable.
content? Wherever people want to view it. We could have screens in stores. Imagine you walk into a retail store. Okay. What do you have there near you? Gander Mountain, uh,
Bass Pro.
Bass Pro. All right. Walk into a Bass Pro, you're in the fishing section, and there's a screen that says, where are you fishing? You fishing anywhere in the next 10 days? Because that's about as far out as you can go with a semi-accurate prediction on the weather. 7 days, it gets to be a lot more accurate. 5 days now, weather companies are 95% plus accurate. Where are you fishing in the next 10 days? What species are you fishing for? Great. Based on all the research, your fishing location, the date you're fishing, the species you're fishing for, here's the top 5 baits you need. And if you're looking for rods and reels and line that match, here's the best matching rod, reel, and line for each bait. Like in bass fishing, if you're going to throw a topwater frog, you need a stout rod, right? If you're going to throw a crankbait, you need a rod that flexes. So you could see the applications for retailers to have really a virtual consultant that is interactive, right? Where they're gathering data. So that's on our radar. I mean, we got a lot of things to accomplish. What we have right now, Mark, is the right foundation on which to accomplish them. We've got proof of concept. We have tons of studies on the effectiveness of our algorithms and our rating system. So that's already been, we've already been proven there. Now it's a matter of how do we apply these to help people make better decisions, catch more fish, have more fun on the water, be able to have a good day without having a lifetime of experience. That's another saying that bothers me. I know a lot of grizzled veterans love saying, well, there's no substitute for a lifetime of experience. Well, yeah, there is. It's fishing smart and learning fast.
Smart to fish wild.
That's right. Or
There you
getting
go.
good advice.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I guess what frustrates you most in the business right now?
The only thing that frustrates me that's a challenge is managing expectations. BassForecast is analogous to a gym membership, not liposuction. If you go every day, you're going to see the results in 3 to 4 months, and they're going to be lasting. If you get liposuction, you'll see the results right now. But if you don't change your habits, you're going to end up needing it again in the future, right?
Right.
So people that use our app once and make a snap judgment, that's what bothers me because I know that we work if you use us regularly. What does we work mean? Probably the best analogy I can make is a batting analogy. If you're a Major League Baseball player and you're batting 200, you're near the bottom of the barrel, right? If I'm a batting coach and I can bring you up to 400, you're going to be a superstar. You're going to go from earning $1 million a year to $50 million a year, right? Guess what? You're still striking out 6 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So if I'm your batting coach and I improve your swing greatly and you step up to the plate the first time after we're done and you strike out, do you point the finger at me, say your batting coaching is not working? Of course not. You know that you have to go step up to the plate 100 times before your average works out. if someone uses us all season long, really uses us all season long, and what does use us mean? It only takes a few minutes to look at the app and see the recommendations. What's the best day to fish? What's the pattern today? Where should I fish? What bait should I throw? It's very efficient, very efficient. So it's very simple to use. And sometimes people equate simple with, oh, this isn't for me. I'm more advanced. Making the complex simple is an art. That's why the most expensive watches only have one movement, but that movement's highly accurate, right? So I'm confident that if someone uses this all season long, their batting average is going to go from 200 to 400. The average angler has a good day 20, maybe 15, 20% of the time.
Yeah,
But they're going to have a good day 30 to 40% of the time. And then we've done our job, and we've done our job better than any other fishing product out there, including electronics.
that's
Because,
awesome.
when people learn how to fish patterns, not spots, they become better anglers. So
Yeah.
we're also considering doing a money back guarantee because I'm tired of almost every single, we have 27,000 reviews, and look, and 95% of them are great. But when we get a bad review that I tried it didn't work, I used to just let it go. Now I reach out to those people, and invariably 99 times out of 100, they only tried it one time. So that's what's frustrating, is the short-term testing mentality.
That is a great articulation of that, and so many brilliant analogies of batting coach. And you gotta stand in the box. You gotta swing through 100 series to figure out
Yeah.
what's really happening. Totally get it. Totally get it. That's fantastic. That is
And there
incredible.
are other apps out there that are like bragging and sharing and mapping, and those are very, very crowded spaces. But no one's doing what we're doing. So when someone says, well, I don't need this app anymore, I can use that one. What you're talking about, cooking potatoes rather than cooking meat. I mean, they're different feature sets, right? It's as different as a trolling motor and a main motor, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. So if I were to leave the viewers of this podcast with anything, look at what the app does, not the fact that it's an app. It's just a product, you know? What does it do for you?
that's incredible. That is incredible. Yeah. Any frustrations in the financial world that potentially my firm could help you out with?
Yeah, absolutely. We have raised 1.9 million cumulatively since 2017 through angels. They've been friends and family at the start. But, I mean, I'm pretty fortunate. I have a solid network of friends and family that are the ones that have invested are qualified investors. They have to be. We don't accept non-qualified investors. They're high net worth individuals. Most of them aren't what you would call a super angel where they just love angel investing. They're like, hey, Mike, we know you're a good business person. You've always done well in business. We like you. Some of them like to fish, and they've helped support where we are today. Now that we have achieved proof of concept and we've got emerging potential competitors and we've figured out how to monetize things, now's the time to put the pedal to the metal and apply a bunch of money on growing. And we've already started that, Mark. Like, our average growth rate in the last 3 years has been 46% year over year, which is pretty good. I mean, for any traditional business, it's awesome. For a mobile app in rapid growth phase, not so much. But in the past 75 days, our growth has been plus 98% year over year because we figured out a few things. So we're in prime position right now to apply a capital to go from a 1 million revenue company to a 5 million revenue company in the next 3 years, maybe more. But that's my corporate semi-conservative estimate. And mobile apps trading at 7 to 10x revenue. I mean, we can go from a valuation right now of somewhere around 7 million to a reasonable 40 to 50 million in the next 3 years. And we're raising 2.5 million to get there. So now the angels that have put in, some of them put in 2, 3 times, I've had most of our angels tell me, hey, Mike, yours is by far the largest I've ever done. I'm at my absolute max. And I respect that. So, and they really want to help us get that 2.5 million institutional raise. So we just now literally last week started reaching out to VCs and family offices. And I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to be a consortium of VCs or one family office or one super high net worth individual that says, I want this. I think we're at a inflection point. We're able to run the company on cash flow. It's not like we need the money. We want the money. We can grow. We can keep growing, but we're also not an uber tight valuation. I don't want to blow smoke up anyone's butt and say we're going to be worth $1 billion. We're not, but we have
Yeah,
a realistic shot, a really good shot, and we had a great team. So that's where we could use some help. 'Cause,
that's
I'm
incredible.
not experienced at working with VCs and raising capital. I've been fortunate to raise the money I raise just because we're doing a good job and our numbers go up every year and the investors know me and trust me. And we do have some new investors that have come in for sizable amounts that just met me through the app. You know, they're bass anglers that run businesses that like what we're doing.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks again for spending time with us on Smart to Fish Wild. I hope today's conversation resonated, and certainly if you're a bass fisherman, I hope you find value in trying out BassForecast to really make far more well-informed decisions. Feel free to share this with friends who you think might find it meaningful. Until next time, get smart so you can fish wild.